Welcome back to Hall of Fame College Football. I'm your host, Jason Watkins. I'm here with my special guest from the Big 12 Mafia, Mr. Nathan Bomber Brown. And if you love college football, you know you're in the right place. So before you forget, smash that red subscriber button, like our videos, and don't forget to ring the bell so you don't miss one moment of Hall of Fame college football. Bomber, welcome to the show, my man. Had to get you in here, talk a little bit about your tweet. There's a lot of stuff going on in college football right now. I think you said it really well in precast. What a great time to be alive and creating content.
It is. It's fantastic. And when I was a little kid, I was a Bob Costas, Brent Musburger, Keith Jackson.
Yeah.
So for us to be
You
able
can
to
get
do
enough
this
of it, right?
it's a dream. Absolutely a dream.
It's good stuff, man. And as I was telling you a little while ago, I think that there's few out there that put in the kind of work that you do and the amazing content that you and your channel have been putting out. Wanted to get your opinion on a few different things. And folks, we are going to be welcome into the show, everybody. I wanted to give some shout outs to everybody in our comment section in the live stream on both pages. What's up, Unc? Alan Woody. We have BU at 12 with Patrick. We've also got Sergeant Pickles coming in on the Big 12 Mafia channel, as well as Glenn Lumen. Jay Chapman is with us. Let's see. Bishop Frank, my man. He's got a he's our membership, Bishop Frank. Welcome to the show, everybody. Thank you so much for coming in. Steve
Some
B.
of the best fans out there, Jason. Some of the best.
I tell you what, nobody's better than the fans that watch our shows, man. And
right.
we got a lot of crossovers. But
yep,
if it wasn't for these guys, we certainly wouldn't do it. So I always want to make sure that we shout them out before we get into anything else. Good morning, Steve B, Alan Woody, Pickles. I know you're bummed out, man, and got a lot of reason to be. One of the things that obviously there is to talk about. It's not really why I brought you on here, but I think you're as good for this opinion as anybody. But Nick Saban, obviously, his retirement announced yesterday, or day before yesterday. It's kind of shocking the world a little bit, as far as the college football universe is concerned. 17 seasons in Tuscaloosa, 6 national championships, 9 SEC titles, 2-time coach of the year. He is the GOAT, and he is calling it quits. Lots of names have been out there, floated. It's starting to look like there may be a leader in the clubhouse, if you will. Apparently, Kalen DeBoer, University of Washington head coach, canceled a appearance on a local radio show there in Spokane, and apparently is in Tuscaloosa talking about the job. It's been he's one of these guys that as a fan of a new SEC school, this is not the guy I wanted to see hired at Alabama, because he just wins football games.
Well, yeah, and you're going to have to play against him next fall. So if I was you, I wouldn't want him either.
I'm being selfish here.
Yeah, I bet.
What are your thoughts here? What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that that's what's going to happen, or do you think, what have been your thoughts surrounding the whole thing? I mean, obviously surprised with Coach Saban, but
right,
and the possibility of it being Kalen DeBoer.
Well, for one thing, thanks for having me on your show, Jason. It's always great to be here. You have been my mentor from the very beginning, and your support I would be nowhere without the help you provided to me. So first, I want to say thank you for you and everything you've done for me.
I think it's a little overblown, but thank you very much for saying that.
Anyway, let's talk about Alabama. So first of all, anybody who says they were shocked that Saban was going to drop this season, I think hasn't been watching the news. I mean, the last couple of years, he's shown to be a little tired. He's weary of the NIL and all the college rules and regulations with recruiting. And It's just a mess. And these guys who have been around for a long time are frankly getting tired of dealing with a lot of those NCAA, I would call them ghost rules. Anyway,
Yeah.
as far as who replaces him, DeBoer has to be at the top of the list. I think obviously Dabo Sweeney, having coached there before, they got to be considering him as well. Um, I don't know. I think Sarkisian's out. Lane Kiffin could still come back. Who knows? There's nobody that says once you close the door, it can't be opened again. But in my opinion, if I was to start a new franchise right now in college football, it would be DeBoer. He's like something like 112-11 in the last 4 years. I mean, that's ridiculous stats. Or 5 years. Those numbers don't come to just anybody. You have to be a leader, you have to be a good recruiter,
Absolutely.
and you have to be able to work within the system. And Kalen DeBoer has certainly put his foot down and set the mark. So if I was Alabama, I would be looking at DeBoer first.
Yeah, I don't, and you know what? That's not a terrible take on your part. I would tell you that he's definitely one of my top guys. I know you've probably heard me say this a bunch of times in the past, but I look at the hierarchy of college football, and the usual suspects are going to be up there. Obviously, Nick Saban, as I said, the GOAT. Kirby Smart has established himself as the other breadwinner, the other
Right.
made guy out there. I don't think that Jim Harbaugh is probably going to be in Ann Arbor much longer. I think he's going back to the NFL more than likely. So I don't, but he's also up there. But there's a group of guys that I talk about a lot that I think are very underrated. Um, I think that the coach at Oklahoma is going to not be underrated for very long. I think he's about to do some great things. I don't think that he's underrated per se. He just hasn't gotten it done yet, and this is his first job. But Kalen DeBoer is one of those guys that has been underrated and almost criminally underrated for a long time now.
Right.
Everywhere he goes, he wins football games.
Yeah.
Period. Plain and simple. Multiple national titles at the lower level. He wasn't getting head coaching jobs at Power 5 schools, anything like that. He goes to in 1 year at Fresno State, turns the Bulldogs into Mountain West contenders. And they weren't before he got there. I mean, Fresno State's always got a pretty good program. He immediately turns it around. Year 2 at Washington, he's playing for a national title with recruiting talent that doesn't stack up to the rest of the country that he ended up beating.
Right.
Going through it.
Yeah.
I look at him about like I look at Coach Whittingham at Utah. Underrated,
Right.
very high value college football coach.
Absolutely. And in the Pac-12, we know this year was tip of the top for all conferences. And to come through that conference undefeated and looking good doing it, putting a thumping on Texas, should have beat them by more than 2 touchdowns.
Right. I
I
thought
think
that
it
was a
just sets
little
a
bit of
great
a fumble.
example,
Mhm.
for success.
Look, and they didn't have a great showing in the national title game. I don't know that it was game plan though, because it seems like he got out there and he was trying to get the ball out fast. They weren't able to run the football against that Michigan front. When having a hurt running back that he wasn't even close to at full speed,
Right.
And then Penix, of course, got hurt early on too, and it rattled him. I think the stage possibly could have been a little big for some of those kids, but that's because of the fact that they just hadn't been there. You give him a couple of years at a place like Alabama. I'm telling you, this is the kind of guy that he would concern me. If you're an SEC fan of another program, that this guy is going to immediately get there. I mean, this is a turnkey program. Saban's not even leaving the building yet.
Right. Well, and let's look at that. Let's look at where the SEC currently stands. Kirby Smart is obviously at the top of that list as well. So, boy, I could just imagine DeBoer and Smart going back and forth for years to come. And he could definitely put his mark. He could also, sort of flame out. I mean, he
He
would be the
could.
first one that has gone to an SEC school, tip top, and then failed, right? But he
Yeah.
doesn't look like he's afraid to me. He doesn't look to me like he's scared. So again, if I
You're
was
going
in
to
the
have to show me
SEC,
where he's lost before I would even think about it. You know what I mean? He
right,
just everything
right,
he does, it seems like a home run type of hire, if you ask me. He's
right.
won. Look at this head coaching record. While he was in Sioux Falls, he's the NAIA school from 2005 to 2009. They won 3 NAIA championships and lost one in the championship game and lost another in the semifinal round. He had a total of he was 67-3 and 49-1 in conference play as
That
a head
is
coach
just
there.
stupid. That is
Stupid,
just stupid.
right? He's
Absolutely.
25-3 as
Yeah.
head coach at Washington.
That's tough to do anywhere. That's tough to do in any league,
That's right.
in any status. I don't even in high school, that's difficult to do that well. So I think
Absolutely.
he's ready and primed, ready to go. There are people, even guys on my own team, that think he's stepping into shoes that might be too big to fill. And who wants to follow Saban? That's
That's
true. But as
that's
far as
fair.
him being scared or not being ready for prime time, I think that's really underestimated. That's criminally underestimating
Correct.
him, I think.
He's done good things as a coordinator as
Right.
well. I mean, he has one of the best coordinators that stayed tied to his hip that will go
That
with
is
him,
true.
much better than Tommy Rees,
Yep.
who the Athletic is reporting Tommy Rees, DeBoer, and Norvell as the top 3. Yeah, I like the Athletic a little bit. I don't know how much. I think that a lot of this stuff is speculation on their part. I think a lot of us are hearing the same things. I said the other night, and I know that everybody was really quick to jump on the Dan Lanning bus. That was a shoe
Well,
and it was
yeah,
guaranteed.
I
And
think there's
I
reason
understand
for
the
that,
dots
but
that were being connected. I
yeah,
understand that.
yeah.
I'm going to tell you, first off, Dan Lanning hasn't even beaten Kalen DeBoer yet. He's on 3 against him.
Yeah, no, I'm not a huge Lanning guy, to believe it or not. I
I
think
think
he's
he's a good up and
overrated.
coming coach. I don't think he's
Yeah,
close.
I don't think he and DeBoer are not in the same league at
I don't
all.
think so either.
No.
I'm not, and that's not bad mouthing Dan. I just don't think he's that guy yet.
I'm not
I
sure
think
he's
I
ever
think he's
gonna
very
be
smart. I think he was very smart to put out that video like he wasn't
right.
interested in leaving Oregon. I find that hard to believe in view of the fact that all coaches leave Oregon, all of them.
Well, frankly, a lot of coaches leave Washington as well. I asked this to Moen last night.
Mhm,
Is there a possibility that with the move up to the Big Ten, that Oregon and Washington no longer become step stool schools? Is it
mhm,
possible with the move up in the Big Ten that those two schools will be final destination schools? Because in my mind, I think Seattle is a destination. Having lived there, having grown up in the area, I would love to live in Seattle myself. Um, and so I just think it's one of those situations that if you leave, there's a higher chance that you fail at a different school than if you stayed and were successful in the school that you were at. That's my opinion about both Oregon and Washington.
I don't think that they're bad places. I think that the way that the college football landscape is breaking up at the moment, I don't think that if you're Kalen DeBoer and you or Dan Lanning and you get offered the Alabama job, that there's a way in hell that you would turn it down.
Right.
And this is why I do not believe for 1 second that Lanning just turned down Alabama. I
Is
don't
that
buy
the
it.
word out? Is
Yeah,
that the word out
that's the
that
way he's putting it, that he's
yeah,
dedicated
I
to
don't buy
that
that.
program at Oregon.
I don't buy that.
I don't buy it for 1 second.
Who
Because
turns
and the
down
other thing I gotta
Alabama
tell
to
you
say
is my
no way?
concern for both Oregon and Washington is the same concern I would have if I was a USC, UCLA guy,
Right.
would be that this travel and in the Big Ten, the only good thing they're getting out of this is a money bump, and it's not really a money bump when you're traveling like you are for these first few years and only getting half of, the payout.
Right.
Uh, I think it's gonna be tough. I think it's gonna be tough in a lot of ways. And I just don't believe that right now They're two very good football programs. I don't know what they're going to do in the Big Ten. I wouldn't put them above the best of the SEC at the moment.
No,
You know,
I agree.
so but I do think that at this moment, the reason I'm saying that is that I still feel like these are those stepping stone type of jobs that you have to take the Alabama job if it gets offered to you, or you would have to take Texas or Oklahoma or Georgia or any LSU. You would have to do that if you get that opportunity from these two schools because of the fact that just there's levels to it. Do you agree?
Yes, I 100%. I don't think it diverges at all. And as long as the current conditions stay, I don't think it changes. I don't
Right.
think it changes or especially Oregon. But you and I are both old enough to remember. I'm just like 2 minutes older than you are. Uh,
Mhm.
can remember when Oregon was not that school. It wasn't until
Right.
Phil Knight
Oh,
started spending ungodly amounts of millions to
yeah.
bring that program up because in the early to mid 90s, hell, all the 80s, Oregon was a laughing stock. And I don't mean that negatively. I mean, they were the worst school program in the upper tier of college football.
Mhm.
And they used to have to do gimmick things to win games with their field and stuff.
Correct.
So it wasn't a place to go. And
Yeah.
it's slowly starting to turn. Washington is this close to being a blue blood program. They've been good
Washington's a
long enough that
very good program,
it's a
very good program
destination
in the
place.
Pac-12.
Yes.
They're
And in my
but they're
opinion,
still
it's
a
going to
rung
always be that
lower.
way.
They still would be a rung lower than the USC's and even probably Stanford's going back a long time, right?
Right.
Not at the moment. Stanford's trash, but I would tell you that yes, I remember their national championship time, and they were competing for them almost every year, going to Rose Bowls a lot. The
Right.
Huskies have been good for a long time. You go back to guys like Warren Moon playing for those guys.
Yep.
They've had some players. Um,
I was
that being said, it's
really college.
still. Uh-oh. Let's
What's
see.
wrong?
Oh no, I was just looking. It says Crimson Tide Forum. I don't know if
Did you
they're.
get in? I'm watching Twitter and I don't see any headlines, so
Mhm. No,
that
it's not
doesn't mean
being
it won't
said yet.
happen.
It's
But
not being said yet, but they've definitely got him up on the front of their recruiting board. So yeah, look, in the end, I think that the announcement could come pretty much at any time. It and I think that those three that they've got up there that you put up there a little while ago, Steve B, is probably pretty close to right on. Stephen G, what I would tell you is this. You're saying he isn't good at recruiting his players or high school players. He has a talent for portal, and that just isn't how Bama's being built. But here's the thing: if it's a different animal at Washington than it is at Alabama, and this is his second season at Washington. What I was pulling up here was that I believe that they improved from one year to the next, but I don't think that there's a coach. If Saban was to go and take the job at Washington, maybe that they would go into the top 10 immediately. But I don't see a lot of guys that are going to go out there and immediately turn that around that quick as far as high school recruiting is concerned. I I don't really care about that. If and a lot of these guys are able to see things that and actually get out and scout players that are 3 stars and 4 stars and put together a team that can kick your ass. Imagine with the resources that he would get at Alabama, it kind of recruits itself there at this point.
yeah, I don't even think there's any question about that. It's absolutely true.
Yeah. It's not Norvell. Is he now coming out saying that he's out of it too? Norvell?
I think Norvell, the messaging around him has been more about Florida State than it's been about Mike Norvell. I think Florida State is doing whatever it can. They took a huge hit by being left out of the college football playoff. They were stung extremely and hard and painful. And so right now, anytime you see Florida State or Mike Norvell's name pop up, it's going to be associated with a bunch of energy and noise because of the college football playoffs.
And not necessarily good energy, though. But I agree with
I'm
you.
not saying that. I'm saying I don't know what kind of energy it is. You can't tell because there's so many mixed messages.
Right. No, I get it. And what I was getting at was that here's the thing about Jay Norvell right now. And I think that a lot of it isn't necessarily his issue. I think that you have a large group of donors and fans and administrators at Florida State University right now that have their panties in a bunch about rules that they signed off on as far as the CFP selection. Why you expected it to be fair when there's 4 spots with 5 conference champions is beyond me. I'm not going to tell you that I don't think it sucks for them. I think that when you showed me that you can't talk 20 players from an undefeated team into not opting out of the Orange Bowl of all games to play Georgia. If you can't do that, do not tell me how great your freaking culture is at Florida State.
Yeah, I would argue that game should have almost not even been played. It ripped your heart out. If it was Oklahoma,
Bobby Bowden would be thinking, though, to hear them act like the Orange Bowl don't mean shit.
Yeah, I don't care about any of that. All I'm saying is if it was your school, if it was Oklahoma, and you guys got rooked out of a spot, I would bet money in that alternate universe that your team would have a hard time fielding a top field team.
I don't know, man. I know that Oklahoma was able to keep a lot of guys from leaving and opting out of the bowl game, and it was a lesser bowl game.
It's alternate history, Jason. There's really no reason to even get into it.
The point I'm making is that you cannot tell me that you have the best. Hey, Georgia went and played in it.
Yeah,
they got just as rooked out of it too. They got just as rooked out of it too. That's the point I'm trying to make. And so where we were at on the conversation was, to me, that kind of tarnishes Norvell a bit. And I also don't think that he's done enough as a head coach here, because he was on the hot seat 2 years ago. He's put together two good seasons.
Well, even this year,
I don't know that he's the guy.
I said if he went 4-7, 4-8, that he could lose his job. So it's not like he's been in some protected space for this year. He wasn't. So as far as I'm concerned, I don't really care about Florida State and their schedule anymore and the games. None of that matters to me. We've all moved on, and people are now paying attention to other things like college football committee legislation and NIL.
Absolutely.
And other things.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that, it looks like Steve Sarkisian may be out of the running, but I don't know that that's necessarily a fluid thing, or maybe he was. The reason when we brought up Lanning, and I think it's kind of the same with Sark, if they're announcing now that they're out of the running for the position, it may be because they were told they were out of the running for the position. And I think that Dan Lanning did a good job of packaging that to look like he was being loyal to Oregon.
Sure.
And I don't know that that's necessarily what it is. I think that DeBoer would be a good coach. For the folks in here that are questioning it, I think until he goes and wins there, then it's a question. He's replacing Nick Saban. I think that the program is going to be put together in a good position for anybody to go in there. I don't like this idea of people, why would you want to follow Nick Saban? I get it that he's the GOAT, but you want to follow him because the program's still in great shape. He's not leaving it to you in a dumpster fire the way that Oklahoma was left to Brent Venables, right?
Right.
So I think it's a good situation. We'll see what happens. We will see what happens as the day goes on. I did want you to come in for that very reason that you were just talking about. A lot of posts been up there. Well, I wanted to talk to you about some of this stuff about collegiate sports.
Oh, yeah, let's do it.
That was one of the main things that I wanted to talk about. Labor laws and the NCAA. And look, I thought it was a great tweet, that your quote tweet. I really enjoyed. In fact, I'm going to share it with the audience here real quick.
I have a good one every once in a while.
Yeah, not bad. Not bad at all. Not bad at all. Let me get rid of this overlay as well. Folks, let me know that you can see that okay.
I can see it. I don't know
okay.
if everybody else can, but I can.
Yeah, Mike, he's reading your comments too, guys. He's
I see that Sooner Legends podcast. Thank you very much. I appreciate everybody who's been following my channel and my guys. Just like Jason's channel, we put a lot of time and energy in on it, and hearing thank you, it goes a long way. So.
OU was a dumpster fire. It was left in not a good position by Lincoln Riley. If you're a Baylor fan, you know that.
Yeah, another example. I just don't think those are even discussion points. The teams are broken at that point. I don't even see a reason to even debate where they end up after their hearts are ripped out of their chest.
Yeah.
And Patrick knows that.
Right.
Patrick knows that. He's just having fun, I think.
It was torn up on the way out, Rocket Rant. Oh, I'm not even going to get into this. It wasn't even a conversation.
That'll get distracted. Really we only got an hour here.
Let's get to this.
I got 40 minutes.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about this. Now, obviously, your tweet, I enjoyed it because of the fact that, look, we're talking about a situation right now where you have a lot of folks that are upset about opt-outs and, missing. I mean, look, we were just talking about Florida State and all the opt-outs. Transfer portal, not having to be, the word that people use is that you don't have any loyalty to the program that brought you in. I've got a lot of arguments for all that, but for the sake of not getting into that, I wanted to take it to this. I think a lot of times our viewers and a lot of people around the college football world, because of the fact that the NCAA isn't square shooting as to what's really going on, believe that the NIL is payment for play. And it isn't supposed to be, first and foremost. It's an endorsement. If your favorite professional football player has an endorsement with Pepsi, it's not tied to his play with the Chiefs, right? And that's the same thing that we're talking about with NIL stuff here right now. It doesn't tie you to your school, whatever it may be. What this was the thing that I love this. If collegiate sports and their athletes, now this is, of course, Bomber's tweet here, are supposed to be tax-free, lien-free, antitrust protected activities, how does the NCAA and their universities maintain control, basically working, being taken advantage of, and exploited for free? Isn't collegiate athletics the last example of, dare I say, exploitation of labor? And this is exactly where Justice Kavanaugh made this deal, and we'll share some of that. But talk to me about what you are talking about here, because I think that a lot of people could stand to have an education on what's going on with college athletes now and for really forever. Bomber?
Yeah, sorry, was that a question?
Yeah, I said, talk to me about what, obviously you read a tweet and it forced you to say this, but talk to me about how you feel about.
Sorry, yeah, I did. I was waiting for a question mark. Okay, so this is it, bottom line. You have players that are in high school and their families need to send them to college somewhere. Well, here's this top of the line college, we'll call University of Utah, not because of any reason, just because they're local. And they're sold on the idea they come to this school and they're going to play football. Let's call it a sport, and that's football. Well, in that time that they're there, what's the one thing that everybody looks to as the payback for that? That would be their scholarships, right? And nowadays, education is more and more expensive every year. It just gets worse and worse and worse. So these players are actually getting a diminished product for, and we would call that their their diploma, and that diminished product, at the end of the day, how many surgeries might your average offensive tackle go through? In a 4 year, and we're now talking 6-7 years of being on a team, you might go through 7 or 8 surgeries. So now all of a sudden your body is tore up, and you've got this education, yes, but when you come out at the end of it, you've got lifelong damage to your body, your soul, and you've really damaged your own personal relationship with your family and your friends. So you've been taken advantage of. And in my opinion, the only thing you're getting back is this education plus a little bit of a subsidy. And we'll say maybe it's $4,000 a year you get from the school to live your life. Well, we all know that's not enough. That's not worth it. In fact, it's not even close to being enough. And these players, to get something back that is a fair trade, would have to be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, because each student athlete holds a part, a role to play on each team. And those teams then have an overall value. Well, all of a sudden you take away football from, we'll say, the University of Utah again. How does that school spend, or sorry, not spend, how does that school sell itself? Outside of its educational mantra, the idea that, hey, we are the University of Utah and we're important, you don't get anything else out of it. So these players are being taken advantage of. And there's worse words that I could use, but basically these players aren't getting a fair trade. They're sacrificing their body and their hearts and their souls for a very, very almost infinitesimal trade in all their labor that they give to the school. In my opinion, that's the closest thing you're going to get to a slave trade is you're going to find anywhere, because you're
Indentured
trading your
servitude,
blood,
at least. Yeah, I agree.
for that. And is that fair? In a court of law, their argument hasn't been made. Now those arguments are being made, and it looks to me, in my opinion, that these schools are going to start losing those lawsuits. And that's what this tweet was all about, is explaining what is the trade in services. What are you actually getting for what you're putting in? And again, in my opinion, it's not enough, because the 1% of the 1% go on to professional sports. We'll just call that football and basketball. Your gymnast isn't getting anything out of that when they graduate. The lacrosse team guy isn't getting anything out in his life once they leave college. So as far as I'm concerned, it's exploitation. And I think they're being taken advantage of, and it needs to change. And again, in this tweet, and if you will take the tweet and copy the link into the comment section so people can read it themselves, there's a lot more details in there that I would encourage everybody to be a part of. But it's ridiculous, the trade. And I just think something needs to change. And by the way, Charlie Baker is not looking out for the players. The NCAA is not looking out for the players. They're exploiting the players. And again, in my opinion, something needs to change.
No, I agree. And here is that. I'll put that link in there if you guys want to look at that tweet yourself for the Big 12 Mafia. You can look at it. And now, obviously, when I got in and started looking at it, it actually, your quote tweet was from Danielle Kelly, who was talking about, and basically had a screenshot of part of Supreme Court Justice Kavanaugh's opinion on it back in 2021, which is really what sent us down this NIL road. And I think that in and of itself is what confuses a lot of people, don't you? Because I believe that when you're a fan, you're looking at it in terms of, we recruited this guy and got him here, and whatever they may be paying him, it's because he's here at this school, blah, 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 blah. Some players obviously make more in NIL money depending on their value and what they are. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that they don't get NIL money based on the fact that they play football at Oklahoma, right? Because they do. But it's not coming directly from the school, or at least, well, it's not coming directly from the school because it can't, as we just saw with FSU getting slapped for using NIL as an enticement.
Right.
Right.
And that's what they're trying to change. That's what Charlie Baker
And it
is in
needs to
front of the college
change.
football. It's ridiculous. They're, in my opinion, Charlie Baker and the NCAA is a corrupt organization. Now, do I think
There's
Charlie
not even a
Baker is
question.
stealing from the players? No, I don't. I don't think they're out and out doing everything they can to exploit the players. But I do think
No.
this Charlie Baker and the NCAA is trying to stay relevant, and they're trying not to get left behind by the A4 because it's no longer P5 anymore, the A4 world, and they're trying to stay relevant. And again, I don't think they're going to get something passed, but it's kind of like asking a drug cartel to regulate itself, a drug
Right.
cartel to only print so much money or only sell so much in drugs. You're
Right.
asking them. You're asking the apes to control the zoo, and
Here's what I'm
it's
going to
just
say.
not fair at all.
I agree. I agree with you. And like what you're seeing from Danielle here, what she's talking about, Danielle Kelly. I think
Who's
it's
a
a great,
stud, by the way. Danielle is amazing.
unbelievably good, very good.
Yes.
Love this. Love this. This follow here. But talking about, she's long said that the U.S. Supreme Court decision on NIL would shape the future. Lawyers work in precedent. Now back up. Look at conferences. Look at networks. Look at what's going on around you outside of that. The NCAA even. The same is going to apply. They cannot price fix this way now because they didn't get their way. The market does that, and the little guy can win. I think it's absolutely correct what she's talking about. What I really liked about this was that you got a picture into what the thinking was when the NCAA, and they were going, this was an entirely different thing that they were going into the Supreme Court to talk about. And Justice Kavanaugh kind of ripped them up and brought all of this to the forefront. What they did in response to what you're seeing here was slap on NIL on it, not have any rules for it that are really enforceable. I don't think that Florida State's going to have a penalty at all because none of it is relevant at this point. But let's just go to this is some of the high points here. The NCAA acknowledges that it controls the market for college athletes. It concedes that its compensation rules set the price for student athlete labor at below market rate, which is very important. The NCAA recognizes that student athletes currently have no meaningful ability to negotiate with the NCAA over the compensation rules. Nonetheless, it asserts that its compensation rules are pro-competitive because those rules help define the product of college sports. That's a lie. Because they're acting like those rules somehow are building parity like you see in the NFL. It's not.
Right.
It's not.
Right.
Specifically, the NCAA says that colleges may decline to pay athletes because the defining feature of college sports, according to the NCAA, is that the student athletes are not paid. In my view, Justice Kavanaugh's view, that argument is circular and unpersuasive. The NCAA couches its arguments for not paying student athletes in innocuous labels, but the labels cannot disguise the reality. The NCAA's business model would be flatly illegal in almost any other industry in America. All of the restaurants in a region cannot come together to cut a cook's wages on the theory that customers prefer to eat food from low-paid cooks. Law firms can't conspire to cabin lawyer salaries in the name of providing legal services out of love of the law. Hospitals cannot agree to cap nurses' income in order to create a pure form of helping the sick. Yada, yada, yada. You can go on and go on.
I like that. Yada, yada, yada. That's right, Jason.
The point is, this is the only place in America, and that was the point that he said, anywhere else, it would never fly.
Yep.
Why does it fly here?
Well, because they're exploiting rules that are not rules that have been in place for 100 years. More than 100 years, there's been this idea that college athletes are amateurs. And we all know that's never been the case. If anything, they were either like an animal, like a stock that is being used by farmers to till the soil or to kill for meat, whatever that may be. You could put a college athlete in the same role And as far as I'm concerned, the schools are taking advantage of these students. The conferences are probably the biggest leeches by scale, but honestly, at the very tip of the spear is going to be everything that happens at the conference level, and they take advantage of these athletes. And I don't know how they right the ship at this point. I actually think it's broken. It needs to be completely rebuilt, and I don't know how you do that.
I think it's some some of the easiest ways. All you got to do is just. I thought that I don't know if you saw the Andy Staples did a show one day. He was talking to a former Florida lawmaker that was working in an NIL collective. I believe that it may have been for Miami or somebody like that, or it may have been for Florida, but he went to one of the other schools. Anyway, when all this stuff started with Florida State being upset and everything that happened with the playoff, which is, obviously neither here nor there, the question was posed to this guy, how do you fix this? How are you able to, fix this problem with these athletes and not in, the opt-outs and everything else? Because I think a lot of times, again, players are getting a bad reputation on not showing up. I mean, even look, T. Kent saying if you don't want to participate, knowing the risk, don't. If the risks outweigh the reward of playing the sport you love, then don't. That said, an equitable situation should be a level playing field. You're not going to get a level playing field, though. You're never going to get a level playing field. You're not getting that.
That will never happen.
Correct.
In what position do you think that a college athlete has any, and I'm capital ANY, any control over their own destiny? The NFL has them frozen out for the first 3 years of school. You're an 17-year-old, you graduate, you can't go to the NFL till you're 20. So what do you do for 3 years?
You got to do it. Yeah, they have a monopoly on being able to get these players and continue to pump out billions. And here's what I would tell you the other part of it. I think that it gets lost in all this BS that you hear from the NCAA and the schools and the coaches that are pissed off about it, that are not fans of Dabo Swinney is probably the best example of this at this moment right now, digging in his heels, not wanting to play the portal game or pay players, right? I tend to believe that part of the reason Nick Saban is no longer coaching at Alabama today is because he doesn't want to play the game anymore. Now, they obviously have done just fine in continuing to evolve with the sport. They were just in the college football playoff. I'm not saying he refused it. I don't think he enjoyed it, right? I think that he liked it the way it was before. I said this before. I think that he had an advantage the way it was before. He doesn't like not having the advantage. I don't blame him for that even, But none of these athletes made a single rule that governs these sports. How can it be their fault that if they use the rules to their advantage in whatever advantage they even have, folks, they can't. If you really want to control them, and I've been saying this over and over, Jay from Unfair Sports, he was in here a few minutes ago. He had a great video earlier this week. If you guys haven't seen it, go over there and take a look. He was talking about the portal, how he likes it. I want to take it a step further with the NIL because I think we get the idea that this is the school paying these athletes, and that's not the case. It isn't. They are supposed to be actually I think that they've made some rules at the state level or laws or whatever that allows coaches to help them negotiate it or whatever. It still is not obviously supposed to be part of an enticement package. It's not on the school to make that payment. And the school's not on the hook for that payment either. If you want to control them, it's revenue share. It's got to be a rev share distribution, period. You have to make these kids employees. Then you can contract them and make them stay through bowl games. That fixes it.
Well, so let's talk about that really quick. The idea that you could restrict access by saying you have to attend to a bowl game. Let's just call it the Tostitos whatever bowl, okay? If you put it in an NIL contract, or for that matter, you make it a contract at the school level, that if you come and play football here, you have to participate in the Tostito whatever bowl, then you're going to get one of two things. You're going to get athletes that potentially can put themselves at risk with injuries
Correct.
just to fulfill some requirement that's in my opinion, kind of arbitrary. Or
Mhm.
two, you're going to have doctors that are going to write notes to these players left and right to keep them so that they don't put their next steps at risk. And when I say next steps, I'm talking NFL draft, I'm talking NBA draft, and it just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make
Right.
any sense to make these things obligatory unless, and this is the big unless this is an additional enticement or control in, say, a super payment. Like you win a million, you get $1 million extra dollars if you play in the Tostitos whatever bowl. If you
Correct.
don't, that's fine. You just don't get the $1 million, but at least there was a fair trade involved there. The way it is
Right.
now, you're basically extorting these players to put their bodies and their future at risk just so they can get these bonus payments. In my opinion, that's all for the wrong reasons. And
Well,
again, I just
how
don't
can you
think that
blame
that
a
should
how can
be
you
put on
blame
the
a
player.
player that I said this before, we were talking about the Florida State stuff. Well, I don't necessarily they have their backup quarterback would have been able and available to play had it been a CFP. You wouldn't have got all those opt-outs,
Right.
right?
Right.
And then, but they knew, I mean, I think it's been pretty clear that either DJU or Cam Ward were going to be Florida State Seminoles this time next year. I mean, I've heard DJU's dad talk about that on another podcast. This kid has been waiting his turn. How can you be upset with him for going into the portal when the portal's open?
Yeah.
And he knows that he's not going to get that job now that Jordan Travis is obviously hurt and he's out of eligibility at this point.
Right.
There's no way that I don't see how you could even blame him. The only way that you can fix this thing is to actually cut them into a contract situation as an employee of the program. They don't want to do that because they don't want to give up a bigger piece of the pie. That's the bottom line here, guys. Cleveland Rocks, thank you for the super chat here. He says, don't make yourself scarce once you join the SEC. Enjoy your comments. Will Oklahoma become irrelevant like Nebraska and A&M in football? Have they ever been? No. I would tell you no. Thank you for the super chat, though, Cleveland Rocks. I don't believe that they will become irrelevant. No, they're recruiting in the top 10 in the country for the last 3 years, doing it defensively or with a more overall team building process from Coach Venables. I think that they are 2 years into the rebuild. They're going to be even better next season. I think first year in the SEC, it's a tough schedule, but I've been saying this for a long time. You've got 2025 is the target year if you have any kind of if you're being reasonable, you shouldn't expect them to win the whole thing next year. Could they? Possibly. It's a long shot. You know what I mean? I think that they're probably still a year away. That being said, I think that things could be kind of working themselves into a situation where they may be a little better than we thought. I think that they were probably a year ahead this year. They went from 6-7 to 10-2 in the regular season. 10-2. They lost the bowl game, obviously, and we'll see how it goes. We're going to find out. Now, thank you though for the super chat. What's up, Chicken? Hadn't seen you in a while. Let's see. I think OU recruiting is about to take off as a member of the SEC. Florida, Alabama, Tennessee, and Georgia is now available for OU to have success getting guys from down south.
Well,
yeah, they've already got that.
Wait a second. Say that slow again, Jason, because it sounds sexy cool. I think OU recruiting is about to take off as a member of the SEC. Florida, Alabama, Tennessee, and Georgia, along with LSU and Texas and Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. How awesome does that sound for next year?
I'm excited, man. I think that it's a tough schedule going in there.
I love it.
Definitely a very tough schedule. But everybody's going to have one, except for unless you're Texas. They get a pretty laid back one.
I think those days of them getting preferential treatment are gone. I don't
Well,
think
I'm just saying
Texas
the
gets
first
what
year.
they
If you
have
look
been
at the
getting.
overall record from this season,
Right.
their SEC schedule is definitely down there amongst the easiest ones.
Wow.
Alabama, Georgia, Oklahoma, they didn't do a whole lot of favors for them there. But I also think that in any given year, I think it balances itself out at some point. And in any given year, you're going to see. I mean, I think that the toughest part of playing in the thing, it may not be that you're playing Bama. It's that next week you go on the road to Auburn. And then the week after that, you're at home to LSU or whatever. You know what I mean? It's just, I think that it's the week after week deal of playing in those conference. It's that it's going to be that way. You know, kind of is what it is.
Well, USC, Oregon, Washington, Michigan State, Penn State. I mean, the Ohio State. It's just, these leagues are just silly competitive.
Well, and here's the other thing that I mean, and I think that it is competitive, but it's also competitive amongst these kids. If they, let's say you go to Alabama, you're even seeing kids leaving Georgia and Alabama and every other program in the country every year. It's happening more and more because if you don't get an opportunity and it messes with your ability to make NIL money, then why are you going to stay if you're not playing? You're not going to be able to hold on to these kids. Now, if you do a revenue share,
ask Manning, where's he going to be? It's going to be like that forever and a day now.
It is. But here's the thing, though. If you have a revenue share thing in place of some kind, and I'm not saying you got to freaking give them all of it. I'm telling you that you need to pay them on a level. If you really want control over their futures, you need to pay for that control over their futures. And they're not doing that right now. Not by the letter of the law, not in any way whatsoever. If you look at the actual rules in place, it's not connected to the school. That's what I wanted. That's why I wanted to bring it up. I believe that these guys deserve to get paid. I don't really have a problem with the transfer portal. I think if there's problems with the portal, it's that when it opens, when it closes, as fans, we want to see a bowl game matter. And at the moment, they don't matter if they're not a playoff game.
Yeah, I think bowl games have been irrelevant for a while now. So
right. In any event, look, we're going to find out where all these guys are, but I do believe that you can get a better control over it. And look, I was glad that I saw your tweet, that I saw this tweet, because of the fact that I want people to understand and know. And I told Jay that before when he did his video from this past week. Look, I want to see these guys getting paid what they deserve. But I also want to see the school that I love have their starting quarterback in their bowl game. Right? That he doesn't have to make that decision and leave. Or, and look, I get it. I don't know that you can really do anything about bowl opt-outs if they're going into the NFL, but then they've already been there for 3 years. If it's a playoff game, they're probably going to play. Right?
Right.
That being said, you really can't change that. The only way you're going to ever be able to actually contract a player is to actually have a contract with them as an employee of your school.
If you're a player, Jason, what makes you want to play in a game that means absolutely nothing?
Yeah.
I'm serious. I'm asking you a question.
What
could possibly entice you? What could possibly entice you to play in a game that has no significance?
Only if it's, I think it would be no significance it depends on what we're talking about, Bomber, because if we're talking about, if you're playing in the playoff, then all eyes are on you. Every scout in America is now watching you play.
Right.
If you're playing in the New Year's Six Bowl, right? But hold on.
Right.
If you're in a New Year's Six Bowl this year, or even some of these other bowls, like, look, Oklahoma played Arizona in the Alamo Bowl. it probably was one of the better bowl games of the season because they didn't have a ton of opt-outs. So that you could look at that as that is value for the player to show out in that situation and get themselves an opportunity. And there were some kids that hung around to play in that before leaving. McCabe Tower, a couple of linemen, Rouse, that had been the transfer in for Oklahoma from Stanford, left tackle. A couple of those guys stayed and played. They're not going to be on the team next year. Now, Dylan Gabriel didn't because he's going to Oregon. I understand that. And he wanted to, and I also think that OU probably wanted to see a little bit of Jackson Arnold right here and give him a start prior to next season. Right. But I agree that the portal open dates, they make sense in terms of the rules that have to do with semesters, though, Chicken. That's the thing about it.
Yeah, it has to do with the winter semester.
And
if
being,
you want to
yes,
be qualified for the spring practices,
correct.
You have to. That's why that window is such a crazy time.
It's going to be there. It's going to be there as long as you keep it tied to education.
I think all the bowl games should be done except for the playoff games should be done by December 10th.
I think it's a little early, probably. And I don't
what's the purpose of having later bowls outside of the playoff games?
Well, I think a lot of people, they got a lot of time off around the holiday.
Well, so give them time off. I think that they've earned it.
No, but I'm saying what are you doing at home? If you're a fan, you want to watch bowl games all the way through.
It's not about the fans, though. We're talking about these teams and these players.
I don't know that you're changing anything. What I'm getting at is that if as long as the model is based around the 2-semester, when when classes are done and your finals are finished for that semester, as long as you continue to, in a nonsensical way, act like that has something to do with it, that this is where we are, right? If you turn it into an employee model, then you don't have to worry about that anymore because you have them as till the end of the contract, right?
I just don't know what that has to do with the timing.
The portal won't.
No. I'm talking about why have a bowl game.
But we were talking about the portal.
This is all connected. I'm talking about the portal too. Season ends December 3rd. You play a bowl game December 10th. Portal opens the day after December 10th.
Yeah, but
why not?
But there's 2 or 3 bowls that have gone on by December 10th, I think. The rest of them are pretty much not until late.
I know, that's my point. I think they ought to play them early and get them done and only leave the playoff games last. I don't know why we have this.
Well, they obviously still generate money, though. They're still generating money with these bowls, or they wouldn't be playing them.
They can generate money December 7th.
Sure. This is the other reason why, hey, what I was saying about the Andy Staples show, that he was talking about, that lawmaker was saying, hey, have the state make it legal to pay the players of a ball game. All of a sudden, the opt-outs don't happen anymore, or fewer of them. If you got a player that doesn't make a ton in NIL deals because he's not the quarterback or the best player on the team guy, and you give him $10,000 to come play, maybe he shows up.
I think it's good incentive. I've got 5 minutes, Jason. Sorry.
Yeah.
I cannot believe that hour went by like that, brother.
It always does, man. We get to talking ball and everything else, and this is what happens.
Well, let's get together in 2 hours, and let's talk in 2 more hours. I can't believe that's already over.
Yeah, man.
That is crazy.
I definitely appreciate you coming in. I love the tweet itself. And I think in the end, I think that most people are on the same page. And this is what I wanted to get out there, is that we all want to see college football continue to get better, not worse.
Right.
I don't think it's the end of the world. And that, like you hear from the NCAA, that players are being able to be paid and go into the portal and do this and that. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I believe that if you make these changes, college football will survive, and you're actually doing what's fair for these kids too at the same time. Agreed. I'll let you go out on that. What's your opinion to that? And then let everybody know how to find you.
I completely agree with you. In my opinion, the way to fix bowl season and the transfer portal and the early recruiting window is you have all bowl games over by December 10th to 15th, all of them done except for the playoff games. It builds up energy for the playoff games, which are the biggest thing since sliced bread, even better than than pro games as they lead up to playoff season in the NFL. So I think that all games should be done except for the playoff games. And in my opinion, that would fix early opt outs. People would be done with their classes, they would be done with their learning, and then they can do the window for recruiting. You can set that up whenever you want because the season is over. And I think that's the
The only
easiest
way
way to
that you
fix
can
it.
do that, though, go ahead. Yeah, finish.
No, I was just gonna say that's just my way to fix it. I'm not saying it doesn't have
Okay,
holes. I just think that it to eliminate a bunch of games that really don't mean anything, they're exhibitions, and you just boil it down to the ones that really matter. I think that's the easiest way to keep focus on the playoff games,
correct.
keep focus where its attention needs to be on the players. And then the conversation to have after that and after bowl season is what do you do to fix the early opt outs and fix the transfer portal, which is currently just killing college football. And the last thing I'll say is Charlie Baker, as far as I'm concerned, is a parasite.
Mhm.
The more I learn about the guy, I don't know him from sliced bread, but in my opinion, everything he's talking about now is selfish, and it doesn't have the best interests of the students at heart. And I think something severely needs to change in the negotiations for college football. And you and I are going to be there to see it through. And I just want everybody to know follow me on Twitter at B12 Mafia or go to our website. Sorry, our YouTube page, which is Big 12 Mafia. And tonight we have a show at 7 p.m. Eastern. We're going to talk more of the Nick Saban, more realignment, more. And once you're done with Jason's show, come over and watch ours.
Yeah, make sure that if you're not already a subscriber to the Big 12 Mafia, make sure you get over there and do that as well. You folks that are in here watching on Big 12 Mafia, if you're not already a subscriber to my show, please come over here to Hall of Fame College Football with Jason and the coach as well. Hit that subscriber button. Hey, man, we always appreciate having you on, Bomber. And we're definitely going to be continuing to do a lot of work together. See you tonight on
Absolutely.
your show. And thanks for coming on, man.
You bet. Let's do it next week. I can
Okay,
do
buddy.
it every other day, man. I'm here
Let's
for
do
you.
it. I'm excited, man. Appreciate it. Have a
Okay.
good one.
All right.
All right.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Nathan Bomber Brown, everybody from the Big 12 Mafia. Yeah, just kind of getting back into where we're at. Now, look, no, I'm not done quite yet. I was going to talk about a few things. But to get into that, and we'll get into Norvell getting his extension as well. Look, here's the bottom line on that. I want more college football fans to be pro college football athlete. Okay. These guys deserve to have their piece of the pie. They deserve to have their ability to move around. In the end, I have a hard time seeing everybody blaming players or being upset with players for not being loyal to the program that isn't really being loyal to them. And these players have not negotiated a single rule into the game of college football. Not one. This is all the work of lawmakers and lobbyists and the NCAA and coaches and administrators and everybody else at these schools. This is the way it is because of them, not because of the player. So when the portal opens, when the portal closes, none of that has to do anything with the players that we're talking about here. If you want these kids to stay and play, you're going to have their agreements be around something other than the academic season, which I saw Jay said in here a second ago. Again, a good way to play. It's around the school schedule, guys, period. That's all it is. Screw the bowl games, have a 32-team playoff. I don't know that it's ever going to get to 32. I think that you're going to have a subdivision of around that many people that's going to turn into a playoff of probably half of that, which is 16. I doubt that it ever gets bigger than that. But that's going to be a different look too. It's going to be a different look too. Bottom line is if you want to entice players into playing, I mean, these bowls will pay them to play. And it's coming anyways. Well, this is something that nobody is going to be able to unring that bell. The second one of these lawsuits goes through, like the one at Northwestern that a lot of the athletes have put forth. You even have that lawsuit right now that's going on. Yes, there will be a players union at some point coming out of it. Chicken, good question. You're going to see a lot of this kind of stuff, right? But look, any of these court things that go through, it could change it immediately. It will force revenue share. I mean, look, a lot of these guys aren't even getting paid the right amount of money still for their jersey sales, right? This is just the way things are. Some of these fans need their social media rights stripped. Yeah, I mean, there's a group of those guys in every fan base, Mike. I think we've talked about that a bunch, right? In the end, just the understanding of where the rules come from and why they are the way that they are is what I would like to see, right? At least if you're doing that, then you know where to aim your anger. And I'm not saying don't be mad about it. I'm not saying that. It sucks not seeing your team's best players playing in situations that, because you want to see them win every game. I also think that Oklahoma playing in the Alamo Bowl, I know everybody wanted to see a win there. They had chances to win with the freshman quarterback, and yeah, they had too many turnovers, but he also got valuable experience in that situation. If you're an Oklahoma fan, you got a lot of valuable experience out of Jackson Arnold in a game that doesn't hurt you for next season. You have to look at it in more than one way. Yeah, I don't know. NIL cap will never come down the road, bud. Never. Not an NIL cap, because NIL is money that is for you being an influencer / endorser of a product. Now, a salary cap, if they want to institute salaries for players, then there would probably be a cap, yeah. But what would a cap do? Why would you want to cap a player's money? You're not capping your school's money. Why do you want to do that and not worry about the fact that these schools and networks are making billions? And like Bomber's tweet said, these players get what, $3,000 stipend for that semester or whatever it is. It's not enough to pay anything. Not everybody gets NIL money either. It still doesn't take care of the fact that they're not paying them as employees when they could be. Yep, I agree. Jay, you still around, Jay? Yeah, as long as everything is around the school schedule, that's going to be the way that it is, right? Immaculate, if you'd like to jump in and talk about this a little bit, love to have you on. Jay, I'd love to have you on to talk about this. I was telling you before that I'd like to do a little more on that, but if either of you guys want to jump in, I'm going to send you the link right now into Twitter if you want to jump on. If not, we'll catch you on the next one. Let's see. Hold on, Immaculate is coming to you. Let's see, Jay. It's in there for both of you guys. Okay. Now let's see what we got. And extra practice and auditions for the next year in spring training. Well, that's look, and I'm in agreement with that as well, right? But yeah, look, I get it. Well, Steve, thank you for coming in. I appreciate you hanging out with us. Hey, hit that subscriber button, man. Come and join us again, man. We appreciate it. Mike, he said, I seen what I needed to see out of JA, and I like it. He was what I thought he was, a freshman quarterback. He had mistakes, but he fought through. And yeah, look, they had plenty of, after the first 3 turnovers, they had an 11-point lead. Now that last one, the last interception was returned 88 yards for a touchdown. And I mean, obviously, if they just get 3 on the board right there, they probably win the game. So you don't want to see him make that throw. But that being said, I liked what I saw out of him too. I also liked what I saw out of Arizona. That's a good football team. It's not, you know what I mean? Big Lubbock. I agree with you here. Yeah. Look, it's spring training. You can call it whatever. As far as that's concerned, I understand that. And it's another spring practice. Yeah, it's another spring practice session, basically. You get the same amount of practices for bowls. I think it's very important. That being said, I think that you fix a lot of these problems. As I said, I'm not against the purity of what the game was, right? No. Their education is paid for. So why is that enough? I'll go back to that tweet that we were looking at a second ago. Welcome to the show, Immaculate View from the Big Ball Mafia as well. What's up, my man? How you been?
Doing pretty good. Quite the show today.
Oh, thank you, man. Yeah, we're talking it up a little bit. I'm going to go into some of this other stuff, but hey, yeah, give me your. I mean, I'm trying to. Still trying to, fight the good fight for these players. Sooner from SoCal saying salary cap, yes, their education is paid for. Why is that? Why is it that you want to cap and decide what they can make? What are we capping it based on? How do you equate what their value is to the program? That it's only worth the scholarship that they get. Jump in at any point here, Immaculate.
Yeah, I think that right now there probably isn't any type of a cap determined because you're going to have guys who are a lot more valuable. And I don't think they're going to go as far as employee status, but if you're going in like contract status, no way they're all the same.
I think you have to. I think that you're going to have some sort of employee status, collective bargaining of some kind that's going to allow you to have any kind, if you expect to have any kind of control over player movement, whatever, right?
But those players need to be careful about that because along with, the good side of employee status is there, but also the negative side. You can, like now, once they do that, you might have to where they're signed in. You're going to have contracts and you're there for a certain amount of time. We've even seen some comments coming out where they want guys to be at schools for a certain amount of time. So if they're going to get, the more pay they get on this, the more likely they're going to have less transfer portal options. So that I would say there's almost like an inverse relationship to that. The higher that is, that the pay goes, the less options they're going to have in terms of transfer portaling.
I agree with that. And that's fine. And I think that's what we're talking about. That was the point is that you have some, look, okay, so Purple Orca says professionals have a cap. Yes, that cap is based on the amount of money generated by the league. Right?
And
that cap is a team cap. It's not a player cap. There's no caps on what the player can make. It's what the team can spend.
Correct.
So we can talk about this all day long if you want to, and talking about salary caps. It's never been a salary cap on a player in the history of any sport. It's on the teams, which would be on Oklahoma if that's what you're talking about. Guys, you're asking for the wrong things. If you want these players to stay on your football team, pay them. Simple. They have the money. Do not let them fool you into thinking that they do not have the money.
You know,
They do.
And I think what you're seeing right now from Sexton going on with all of his guys is he knows that's coming. He knows that a bunch of the money is going to start flowing more to the players, just like you see in the NFL. The coaches there don't make way more than the players. It's the opposite way. So we just saw Norvell's pay $10 million for 8 years. He's getting his guys set up for as long as possible. And I think that they see it coming too, that the pay for players is going to start to go up and it's going to come directly out of those athletic departments. And we might be seeing right now the peak of coach pay. Like that could be going down here in the future.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, he came back.
Sorry.
Got through with whatever it was.
Yeah, I've got echo. Are you hearing that?
No.
Somebody, I've got echo. How about
I don't
now?
have it on here. Do you have it on somewhere else?
I have it now. I'm set. Sorry about that.
Okay, cool. No, I think that there's a trade-off for all of this, is the point I'm making, right? He didn't get an education. He couldn't read when he left Oklahoma State. He was like, what does that have to do with what we're talking about? Guys, you want these guys to not get paid. I understand. Look, you know what's happening right now is that people like Oklahoma are using the PWO system where they can just basically pay for your tuition like it's a scholarship, but call it a walk-on. So they don't just have 85 scholarship guys. They essentially have, but they're hiding the money. Now, I know as an Oklahoma fan, you love it because that means we get better players all the way down the board, right? In the end, they're still trying to get around having to share the revenue with the guys that are generating the revenue. It doesn't make sense to me. I got a private.
Can I ask a question to your viewing audience, Jason?
Please.
So, why do any of you care? The money's not coming out of your pocket. The player's safety and health and satisfaction should make you want to help them. So, as long as you're not the one footing the bill, I just don't understand this very tight, almost negative way to look at the way these players are treated. I've never understood that. You're not writing checks. It doesn't affect you. So why do you care?
Yeah, I'm not sure what I think it's a great question. I think it's a great question. All what you see is that, and look, I understand that a lot of times it gets made to look like they don't have any kind of a walk-on, a preferred walk-on chicken at Oklahoma basically gets their everything paid for. Their tuition, their tuition and all that stuff is paid for. It's paid for. They give them that much in apparently NIL funds, but they're using NIL funds incorrectly that way. Now, they could be getting equal value out of them. They're forcing them to go do whatever for the NIL collective. I don't know. They probably are getting equal value out of it in some way. But that's what I want people to understand, is that the NIL is not the same thing. It's not the same thing. We need a cap not on the players but on the schools if we want a true level playing field to mirror the NFL. That's correct, Tim.
I like the salary cap idea.
I don't have a problem.
Yeah, Immaculate, what do you think about that? We haven't talked a lot about that on our show. We've mentioned it, but do you see a big problem with having a salary cap for NIL?
It just depends upon how much control they want and how much they want on themselves. Like if each school wants to control it more themselves, then no, I don't think a cap is needed because they'll just control that themselves. But if they might want one institutionally from the NCAA or whoever ends up governing this, so that way it covers them. It gives them some cover fire. So I can see the institutions wanting it from a higher body just to give them cover fire for why maybe they're not paying a certain amount to the athletes, because that would protect them from looking like the bad guys, so to speak. But I don't know if it's absolutely necessary. Like saying with him,
you can't cap the NIL ever because it's for your name, image, and likeness. Whatever
that's
you want to do, they will never be able to do that.
But But what's going on in the conference right now, going on the convention, is they're trying to bring all NIL money into the athletic department now. And once that happens, then it's the legislation they're proposing in the NCAA right now in Phoenix for the NCAA convention. And then there's also some matching legislation that's now being brought up in Congress as well, conveniently at the exact same time. So we'll see how that goes. It's that doesn't end until, today, and we'll have a better idea of what they're planning to do. But it does seem like they're going forward with the NCAA president's idea on how to do that.
No, I get it. Yeah. And I think I just want people to make that separation of what I'm talking about, is that the NIL is not the same thing as revenue share. If you get revenue share, then you can control player movement. If you don't, and the schools themselves, they may be now. Big Lubbock, you're saying, Tech has been paying non-scholarship players, not Tech, not technically. They're not. It's if we're going through NIL funding, that is technically not coming from Texas Tech. Say that 3 times quick. Technically not coming from Texas Tech. Not. When you go to a revenue share model, then you can make those kind of contracts that have to do, it ties you directly to that football program. It has nothing to do with, just like your professional athletes, Patrick Mahomes, his which, I mean, he's got what the State Farm commercial, right?
Yep.
That doesn't, if he goes to another team tomorrow, it doesn't have shit to do with State Farm. It's the same with the NIL now. They just, they use the word NIL. Nobody's ever heard that before now. And it's basically endorsements. But so you don't really know what it is, and so you equate it with salary. It's not a salary, folks. It's not a salary.
I think
their collective may give certain amounts of money to everybody. That happens.
Yeah. I think the collective's money is going to have to start coming into the athletic department to govern it. But what you're saying in terms of endorsements, that's probably going to be free and clear. Like that's just going to continue on as is. But I think what the ADs are really going after are the collectives. Because money was starting to come from them, the ADs, into the collectives, and they want to bring it back. They want to control it.
Listen, but why would you? How come they're able to do that? Now, if you are actually able to look, let's be real. That the collectives are basically run by somebody that is connected to the school, not technically, but that that's what's going on.
Yeah.
So they're able to work their magic. But I think that the way that they're doing things promotes seediness, guys. If you have a real contract and real money that you see the profitability, what they make from the bowl appearances, what their percentage is, and what their contract is, then everything's on the up. And are you ever going to be able to keep them from paying under the table? No. But you take a level of seediness out of it by just connecting them up. It becomes obvious of what the deal is. And I want to also say this, the transfer portal stuff, guys, I think Jay said this really well last week. It isn't always the players that just go in the portal because they want. Sometimes coaches say, get out. Coach Prime, for example. Go to the portal. They can't necessarily make you, but they don't have to play you.
No.
They can take your scholarship away if they're not going to play you. You're better off.
Indirectly, they're basically pushing you into it. Yeah.
Yeah. How are the broadcasters? I like this comment. Guys, if you guys want to make sure that your comment gets seen, hit that super chat button and we guaranteed to read all your comments. But there's a lot of folks in here, so it's hard to keep up with all of them. Let's see. I like this one though. How are the broadcasters getting away without paying the broadcasters getting away without paying NIL money? That's a good question. I think you are making at least a attempt to separate there between what we're talking about, because in the end, to me, I think that one of these, whether it's a lawsuit, because there's lawsuits in the works now, what's the one that Northwestern has the players that have the lawsuit going for like unionization, right? And then they have something from California the same. Is that right, Bomber?
USC.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, how you're controlling money is by saying each group has so much that they can spend. And let's look at a good comparison. English Premier League in England, the soccer, the way that they control that through spend is you can only sell or give to your players what you take in advertising. So you do something similar in college sports. You basically say, if you're BYU, your X brand value is going to be different than Alabama is going to be X. So if you compare those two things, you're going to get big disparities, but at least everybody's playing by the same rules. And I think that's where we're at right now. Everybody's making up the rules. Immaculate and I made a rule, but right before we started this show, that said after 5 minutes, if you weren't doing your job, we were going to kick you off and we were going to run the show ourselves. You have to have some control, right? There has to be some mechanism that makes it so that it's an even playing field for everybody. And as long as those rules are the same, I don't see why there should be any control. And I just don't understand why me as a fan, what my opinion is about player X, why does it matter at all? In my opinion, shouldn't matter at all. It should all be the schools and the players themselves.
Right.
And that's largely what's going on. I mean, people voicing their opinions doesn't mean people in charge are paying attention to us.
Right. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
I mean,
it doesn't matter if they're paying attention to us. The right people need to hear this, and the right people that are saying this need to be being heard. So we need to continue to echo that.
Sure.
I think that, and I think that the more that the audience and the fans of these, and because the fans, guys, I'm not saying none of you matter. I'm saying you all matter. That's why you need to know who's really at fault here for the sins of the sport. Really, it isn't the player.
I wish they could just.
It is not the player.
I wish each school was given a stipend, and every school in that conference was given the same amount of money, and the school could spend that money however they wanted to. Mm-hmm. They could spend it on player development. They could spend it on coaches, or they could spend it on the top 3 players, just to be more competitive. As long as everybody's playing by the same rules,
that's up to you as the school.
Choices.
Correct. That's as your program, you get X amount of money for your whether it's to pay salary or whatever, and then whatever, just like a professional sports team does. If you put a salary cap in place there, then that's fine. But the cap will never be on the player, though. You can't cap what players can make. Now, only the NFL can say, think about this. The NFL, there's a cap on the teams, but you can break it. But what is something that I've always said that, people think it was always a rule that they're not going to have a guaranteed contract in the NFL. Not a rule. This was something that up until the Browns did Cleveland Brown things and paid Deshaun Watson a fully guaranteed $230 million contract.
Broke the system. Right.
That set a nice little precedent for all the players. Now the rest of those owners really hate the Haslams for that, and should. But
as long as
they were getting away with it.
But as long and Immaculate, correct me if I'm wrong. As long as the Pittsburgh Steelers have access to the same spending rules that the Cleveland Browns do, then it's up to the administration to spend their money in the right way. Right now, how much money is sitting on dead money is sitting on Deshaun Jackson right now? Well, sorry, Deshaun
Watson.
Deshaun Watson. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not sure on that, but with the NFL, what you have, it's in all of their best interest, basically, to kind of try to keep the parity of the league.
I think so.
But in college football, I don't think that a lot of your halves really care to be brought down to kind of a level equal with the others. The difference is so much, and there's no centralized power that's going to push it.
I don't think that part is ever really going to happen, by the way.
Yeah, it sounds great. I like it, but I don't think it's ever going to happen.
Yeah, but how would you anticipate if that's not the method, what method do you use? Because I think right now the method
I think
is
it's just going to be a flat revenue share, and you can make whatever contract. I think that they're going to want to continue to have – see, here's the other issue with that. is that these networks, television networks, have a lot to do with the rules that are coming into play too.
Sure.
I mean, let's make it real. That's the truth. Real quick, Duke Silversooner. Players should have to adhere to contracts, just like Saban said. I don't know what you mean by that necessarily. I can tell you that whatever contract they sign for their NIL deal, they are adhering to it, or they wouldn't be getting paid for it. Their NIL contracts, if they have one, it's not to play football, it's to endorse a product or a company, or somehow as a social media influencer is how you get NIL money. It's not for being a football player. I don't know. Is there another way that I can say this for people to understand that more? I don't want people to not understand this. And what I want you to understand is that these players have not bargained for nor made a single rule that they go by. The only people that make the rules are the NCAA and the schools themselves.
Then I think that's broken. I think it needs to be standard for every school. It needs to be the same for every player, and it needs to be the same for every conference. And if you don't do it by equalizing, say, all the A4 leagues, again, we go round and round about this, but in my opinion, the A4 really at this point sort of needs to separate themselves with
the
their
power
own
conferences,
legislation.
right? Some way, or the subdivision route, whatever they're talking about. There's going to be a change, right? Hey man, Norm was in here the other night, man. He was killing me.
I think the autonomous conferences since 2014 have been trying to get full governance. They got partial at the time, and they did it by threatening to leave the NCAA.
That's right.
Now we see the attempts that's going on. Once again, the same. How many people do you see out there pushing this thing about, oh, the P2 is going to leave. They're going to leave the NCAA. The same threat is out there to leave. And so I think the play is the same. They're trying to get the autonomous conferences to have full or near full governance of Division I. And so because that's the way it is now. Everything that they do, any other Division I conference can install those new rules, but they're limited in what they can do. So that's where I think it's going. And then they'll have the A4 board. It's part of the reason why I think there's going to be some surprises in the future about who moves into some of these conferences, because they're not going to want to be
what does A4 mean? I know you guys have been calling it whatever, but
the autonomous conferences. So instead of P, which is power conferences, it's autonomous. And that has to do with that. It's basically their voting method is so streamlined compared to the NCAA. The NCAA, it's this madness going on right now in Phoenix with the committees and this vote goes here. With the autonomous conference vote, it's a streamline, like they vote, it's in or it's out, that's it. And so, and they can do that at any time of the year. So once they get full governance, expect things to click. Like just boom, boom, this is all going to start fitting into place.
Yeah, and all that really needs to happen is one of these lawsuits needs to go. Just like, hey, the transfer portal part. If you're against the transfer portal, like a lot of people are, it just got worse. And you know why? Because a judge did the right thing and said, "Why are you telling them that they can't go to another school where they can make more NIL money because they can play?"
Because as student athletes,
you're not paying them. When you're not paying them to be on the bench, you cannot change where they are. Folks, if you really want to get into it, if you really want parity in the sport, and I don't know how many people do. I can tell you, Oklahoma fans probably don't. Just like Alabama fans don't. Huh? I want parity. I don't know that how many people do. If you
let's take
do
a poll,
parity,
the three of us, do we want parity? Do you want parity, Immaculate?
I wouldn't mind it. Do I think it's going to happen? No, because
I don't
as an Iowa guy in the Big Ten,
because I don't think it ever happens.
I know the other schools in the Big Ten that are at the top are not going to want to be parity with Iowa.
Well, I guess maybe we ought to classify and define what parity is, because the NFL technically is a pair league.
Chicken speaks for Oklahoma fans when he says, "Hell no."
That's what Ohio State fans would say, and that's what Michigan fans would say. That's what Penn State fans. And as an Iowa guy who's been in the Big Ten and watching us, have to fight this uphill battle every year for decades, I'm cynical about it. I say, yeah, I don't think that those schools are going to want us to be the same as them in the Big Ten. And so would I like it? Yeah. I don't think it's going to happen though.
I think a lot of it has to do with a lot of people are making it like it's. You got to think about this. Look, is there the ability to have parity in the NFL because of their salary cap system? Yes. And then the worst teams get the earlier draft picks, right? Where you finish depends on where you draft every year. Now the trades come into play and money and all that stuff. But why do you think the same teams are shitty every year and always freaking drafting at the front? Because they don't take their money and put it into players. They put it in their pocket.
Or you have it there, Jason. You have good run organizations. You have bad run organizations, right?
Correct.
Mike Tomlin at Pittsburgh has been doing this for 15 plus years. And you could say that's a highly successful organization. Who's more successful, the Jets or the Pittsburgh Steelers or the Seattle Seahawks? It's obvious the teams that are run well. And so I think there's only so much you can do to make things equal.
Correct. No, and I agree with that. And I also think that in the end, the teams that really, really want to play for national championships, and there's probably 15 of them that think that they really can.
Every year on year, yes.
That they're willing to put forth the investment to do so.
Right.
You have schools like Oklahoma State, and I'm going to talk shit about Oklahoma State all the time because that's what I do. But you have schools like Oklahoma State that are never going to put forth that investment to recruit the way that Oklahoma will. They won't. They're okay with winning X amount of games and not winning conference championships. But they want it to be, you know what I mean? Do they still want to be considered whatever? There's a lot of schools like that. I'm not just dogging on them. I'm using them for an example because I love to use them for a bad example. This is how I roll. But that being said, in the end, you have programs that are like that. There's never going to be, look, Stat Guy was a South Carolina fan. Stat Guy is with Coach I on Fan Addict Sports all the time. He was talking about, we were asking the question, is Shane Beamer in trouble if they don't win 7 or 8 games this year? Probably not, he says. He would be anywhere aside from a place that they don't have the high expectations like that.
Yep.
Right.
So if you can't legislate expectation into fan bases either, or into these schools that aren't used to being blue bloods at football or one of the top level teams in football.
But also like a
put their money in their basketball program.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But these schools like them, like Iowa, we've been in these conferences long enough. We know the hierarchy. We understand where the value is. Like we're getting paid the same as them, and we know more of that value is coming from them than it is from our school. Bringing in parity and maybe bringing those programs down. When you're talking about administrators who have to work these budgets, they don't necessarily want that either. You might, if you were to get someone at, say, Iowa or another school like that to be truthful about it, they may not want to actually be on a parity with Michigan or Ohio State because those fan bases are much larger and they are the ones that are paying the bill that are getting, a place like Iowa paid. So I don't necessarily know if you would actually get them to vote for true parity anyways, because that might not be what's best for business.
It's not. Yeah, I get that. And look, in the end, Bomber. In the end, these guys are Wet Blanket. You don't really want me to talk about why I kicked you off this channel. And Bomber, you can get him off this channel right now. And I'll tell you why later. I don't want him on my show. Wet Blanket, do me a favor and get him out of here.
Me? How am I supposed to get rid of him?
Because he's on your stream.
Oh, he is?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Let me see if I can figure out how to do that.
If you can just
I didn't.
I would appreciate it. It won't let me do it.
You bet. I'm happy to try. Let me log in. I've never tried that before.
I know he's one of your members. He's going to come in here
He
running
is
his
one of
mouth.
my guys. Yeah.
Well, the reason that I kicked him out is just so, I mean, since he brought it up and he's saying that I blocked him because I'm soft about taking criticism on OU, it has nothing to do with OU. It actually has to do with Oklahoma State, Locked On Oklahoma State's Cody. He has done some things and tried to get Cody fired from his job at Locked On Oklahoma State, and I don't like him. So I don't want him on my channel.
So wet blanket. This is Jason's stream. So I'm just gonna move you now. You're welcome to come on my show, but it's his show, so we're gonna do that.
Get out.
There he goes.
Yeah, don't bring up stuff you don't want to talk about.
I just did it.
I thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I wasn't gonna say anything, but he was.
I thought it was funny you were asking me. I was confused.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
Get him out.
Now I get it. I get it.
No, I'm not lying.
Your
And
show,
he's not
not
kicked
my
out of there.
show.
He's still there. So
Okay.
yeah, you know. Anyway,
I said
done with this conversation. Anyway, we're good, man. We're good. Yeah, whatever, man. Chicken. Let's see. Who else? OU has supplemented other sports. That's why girls softball's growing, gymnastics, golf. Yeah, no doubt. That's why they're so successful, valuable. Where is that money going to come from? What do you mean by that? You know, I'm not exactly sure what you're asking here. I don't think that has to change just because you start paying players. Look, there's these arguments that you're getting. Remember that you're getting them from people that are paying lobbyists millions to keep the laws unlawful. If you listen to what Justice Kavanaugh was saying, the rules surrounding all that stuff. Right. Go ahead.
I was just about to say, well, someone's asking me a question, but I already have to head out here soon. But let's see what Ryan has to say. No. I don't think there's going to be a split.
I think it's a good time for me and Immaculate.
Well,
I think.
And the reason why I don't think there's going to be a split is it's not actually good for business. It's one thing when everyone has like that slight chance of getting in there. It's relevant. They're paying attention. But if you just completely separate, you're going to lose more viewers than you're going to gain.
Well, you got to have teams that lose in these conferences, guys. You know,
gotta have a loser every game.
Well, what's the goal of a competition anyway? Is to sort the wheat from the chaff, right? Is trying to separate the better teams from the teams that aren't as high up there. At the end of the day, what we're talking about here is the best competition we could possibly get. That's all we want. The best competition, and how we get there by selecting teams or selecting players or even selecting coaches, I think is really the only difference from one to the next. So I in my opinion, my final word will be, I would rather have a top, let's say 60, 3 conferences of 20, and I know it's not going to be that clean, but top 60 of schools that all compete for the same prize, and then everybody from 61 all the way down to 110. That's 50 schools, and they fight for the second one, and that is established over a period of years to figure out. You have 3 championships, and everybody's successful. Just like Immaculate said 100 times, it's better to have the competition, and instead of eliminating everybody just because they can't afford it, they don't have the strongest NIL, whatever that might be. That's where I think we're all much better off.
Mm-hmm.
Well, some of those schools, they're good at other sports, right? And these conferences are full conferences, so it's not just a football solution. Right. So anyways, I do got to get running here, guys. Appreciate the invite to come on. Always love coming on and chatting with you. So I'm sure we got a whole lot more.
Always a good time, man.
See you tonight, Immaculate.
Take care, guys.
You get over there and follow him on Twitter. I think he's got a show coming out pretty soon as well, but it's at Immaculate View on Twitter. Make sure you follow him. Look, as I've said a bunch of times, when you want to know what's going on in the world of realignment in college football, there's one place to go: Big 12 Mafia. No doubt about it. Those guys are on it. Bomber, Immaculate, Moen. They have amazing guests that are on the pulse of this thing at all times when it comes to money. We've been on this same conversation for a long time. I kind of want to get off it, but just one last thing about it. They talking about they have been paying players for a long time. Maybe Saban left now because everybody can do it. It's legal. I would think that has a lot to do with it.
Yep.
And that's not even talking trash about Coach Saban. I'm saying that, look, I respect the guy. His advantage, we know what it was, right? I don't care who you have. If you have the best players, you're going to win. And if you're not winning with the best players, then the coach sucks. He's a hell of a coach.
That's true.
If he's a hell of a coach, there's no doubt about that. But I don't care how good a coach he is. If he didn't have those players, he would not have 7 national titles.
Absolutely not.
Period.
Yep.
So his advantage definitely was lessened by the ability to pay, having the ability at some schools to pay or use their collectives, whatever, to be able to pay these kids. They're not doing it the correct way, though, folks. They're just not. And that's the only thing I want. I want to make the distinction between the NIL is not money paid to players for playing on your athletic teams. It's not. It may get there through a collective, like what Sooner fan was talking about, or not. No, Big Lubbock was saying the Matador Club, $25,000 a year. That's all well and good, but they're doing that through the collective. And in order to get that money, by the way, it's not just to play football. They're on the football team, so they're eligible for it. But they've got tasks that they have to do in order to get that money, if that makes sense. Anyway, just look, we'll continue trying to educate here, guys. But understand that these changes that are coming are changes that are going to be coming probably from legislation and courts and things like that, because of the fact that the NCAA and whatever school you love isn't doing it right. That's it. Okay. Yeah, look. Brent Fell, 24 Brown. These kids need those new BMWs. Bro, you don't know what they need. You don't know what they need, man. And it's not right for you to do that. So see you in a bit, Immaculate. Thanks for coming in. We appreciate that. Guys, just remember, every rule is not, there has not been a single rule that's been made by a football player at any school. Not one. Or a basketball player or anybody else. The adults are in charge of that, and they are the ones that have screwed this up. Okay? That's how it is. We're talking about the podcast.
I did Sooner Legends podcast.
Man, it's at Sooner Legends podcast. I don't know that he's got the ability to change the whole back half yet, but
have you been on his show before?
Haven't been on the show. I've been helping him with the trying to mentor him into it and stuff, and I'm working on some stuff. But folks, if you're not already over there, you Sooner fans in the chat, and whether you're a Sooner fan or not, get over there and check out the Sooner Legends podcast. Lots of historical stuff that you want to know about, guys. Lots of historical stuff. Now we're seeing Menace to Sports is saying that they're calling Norvell to Alabama.
I would just say for Sooner Legends, DM me your information, and I'm happy to check out your site.
I'll send it to you right now, too.
Yep,
I'll send it to you right after this. So.
Look, Jason and I are in the world of raising other people up. We're not about keeping other people down. We're about bringing everybody together. The more active we are in YouTube, the stronger we are together. And I'm happy to check that out Sooner for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see. Mike.
Well, you've got a few people in here today, Jason. You've done a good job.
Yeah, it was a kind of impromptu thought, but after I read your tweet this morning, I mean, it turned into a long conversation because we were at 20 minutes before we got into this.
Right.
It's good stuff, but
I would just ask, does anybody have any questions for you or I? You know, in the comment section, I got a couple minutes.
Yeah,
if
go
you
for
want to ask me or Jason a question, I'm happy to answer it right now.
Ask away, folks. Ask away real quick. What I'm gonna do real quick is I'm gonna get those channels for each other, and then so I can move that over there. But yeah, guys, ask away. What do you got?
I am here to answer questions.
Let me see real quick. I just want to find Sooner Legends podcast. There it is. Yeah, it's just at Sooner Legends podcast. So I will put that in the chat as well. And Bombers is, of course, at Big 12 Mafia. Oh, I didn't know.
Let's see. Norvell signed an extension.
Oh, yeah, he just signed the extension.
He just signed an extension. Wow.
Yeah, for 80 million, 10 years. I did just see that, but I was just seeing when I went into the YouTube that was what Menace was saying. So it's got to be. Yeah.
Yeah, I was a little lost. Sorry about that.
I can tell you. You think Norvell's really pissed off at Alabama right now? I bet he's not.
Well, yeah, I don't think so. I mean, if he wants to stay relevant with money, I'd want to think that he would be happy with what's going on right now. It is interesting, though, just between you and I, that it takes a major explosion in, say, the coaching range or a big explosion in the players area for a lot of these changes or moves to be made.
Right.
You know, these guys aren't doing this out of the kindness of their heart. They're doing these changes based on their own greedy desires and not because we're watching a game of football on a particular weekend. I can tell you that right now.
Okay.
Really active fans in your this is fantastic.
It's hard to keep up with what's going on in there sometimes if we're not necessarily talking about it, right?
Right.
Mike, I hear Arizona State fans said he had no respect for Saban. He says Saban sent a spy to Oklahoma practice to spy and steal signs. That's what Saban was at LSU, and then that's why Bob Stoops closed his practices. Well, we know that Lincoln Riley is very, cover up everything and don't, he's taking away press passes and all kinds of stuff from guys for whatever, taking pictures or talking to players and stuff outside of the realm of the way. I think that you're going to have to stop doing that, though. And I think that, it was something I'm going to actually
stop doing what?
So much of this controlling what the players can talk to the media and taking pictures and being so secretive stuff.
You think they have to change that?
I do think they need to change that. Okay. I think that this whole stuff with the sign stealing stuff, I'm going to say this one more time. That would not be a problem if they just allowed them to freaking put some, radio equipment in the helmet. Just like the NFL. They can afford it.
That? I think that's a brilliant idea. And when I found out that they weren't doing that, I was shocked. The technology's been there for 20 years. Why not let them do it? I just don't understand why you would make that a big problem. I don't get it.
Yeah. Listen, okay. And the hard thing about it is that not every player has the same marketability. That's a fact. That's a fact in the NFL. That's a fact in every sport out there. That's a fact in regular life. I don't have the same marketability as, Pat McAfee. I don't have his. There's no way. Pat McAfee's getting all kinds of money. He just got $60-something million from ESPN. Do I think he's a great journalist? No, but he's entertaining. Look, your market is what the market says it is. Your market is what the market says it is when it's NIL money. And this is where I'm saying, just like quarterbacks get paid more than everybody else. Quarterbacks will get paid on everything. Coaches taking away scholarships year to year. Many fans don't realize that happens. I've seen it personally happen. Yeah, it happens. It happens. Look, that's going to be what it's going to be. If you're not treating, you're not trying to win. Yeah, I'm pretty. I have a hard time with the word cheating in sports if we're not talking about a golfer that's moving his ball or signing a wrong scorecard, right? I think that you try to get an advantage any way you can if you're playing a sport.
Absolutely.
Now, and coaches, look, if high school coaches, they have to share film for scouting purposes and stuff like that, but that doesn't mean that they're not doing it wrong there too. It just is what it is, man. I have a hard time. If you put a speaker in the helmet, you don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, I agree. All right, Jason, let's wrap it up. Or at least me. I got a jet.
Okay, bud. I'm about to do it too. But guys, thanks a lot for coming back in there, Nathan Bomber Brown.
Oh yeah, sure. Sorry about that. Real life work has to step in every once in a while. So
it does indeed. It does indeed. We all have responsibilities. We appreciate you coming in, though. Make sure to get over there and subscribe to the Big 12 Mafia Show. He's on tonight, 6:30,
7 p.m. Eastern.
7 Eastern.
7 Eastern.
5 Mountain Time. Then
5 Mountain. Yeah. And we invite everybody to come, even those stuck in the air Oklahoma guys that think they're better than everybody else. I'm just teasing. Hey. Everybody's invited. We're going to be talking college football regulation. Charlie Baker, who I think is a sap, and we'll talk a little Alabama, I guess.
Hey man, we talk about everything on these shows. That's the beauty of his show, is that you're going to get a little bit of everything. Not one of them is a fan of the same program.
That's true. That's
pretty much. That's the way my show is, though, too, man. I have all you guests are all fans of other programs than the coach. He's my co-host on the Jason the Coach show. He loves Notre Dame, hates Oklahoma and Texas.
Yeah.
He likes Coach Venables, though. So it is what it is. But this is the beauty of college football. You can love whoever you love, and we can still talk ball. I love the game.
I love it. Everybody have a great day. We'll see you tonight. And thanks again, Jason, for having me on your show.
Yes, sir. Have a good one.
Right.
Talk to you soon.
Peace out.
All right, guys. Yep. Let's see. We're going to see kind of what happens. I think it looking like Kalen DeBoer right now, right? Kerwin. What's your thoughts on Nick Saban being gone there, Kerwin? Here's a Bama fan for us. Let's see what he thinks. I'm kind of look through some of this stuff here. Who's the next Alabama coach? I think it's the guy that as a fan of another SEC program not named Alabama, I didn't want to see Kalen DeBoer get that job. I did not. I think it's Kalen DeBoer myself. Sooner Legends, thanks for coming in, Mike. Thanks for coming in. Make sure you check out Sooner Legends podcast as well and subscribe to that channel. You're going to continue seeing amazing historical information, awesome stuff. He's coming out with stories that if you don't know the whole story, he's going to give you a side of it you probably hadn't heard, even if you do know a story. So check it out. All right. See you later, chicken. Thanks for coming in. Appreciate that. Remember to hit those like buttons. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I think it's got to be. But yeah, as far as the coach is concerned, I thought initially I was not among the people that really thought it was Dan Lanning. I know that was the first person that they talked about. I don't know. What has he won to get there? You know what I mean? To get that job so far. I know he was connected to Nick Saban. I know that he was also defensive coordinator for Georgia and Kirby. I didn't think it was as cut and dried as some other folks on the show the other night when we did the live. I believe that the best coach for the job then and probably now is probably Kalen DeBoer. He's not the sexy pick because he came from NAIA head coaching and was a coordinator before that. When he's been a head coach, he wins. Year two, at the lower level, they play for a national championship. Year two, as a Power 5 coach, he plays for a national championship. And look, you can look at all those recruiting rankings. Washington hadn't been there. You know, they've got, that doesn't mean that they're not good. I think that the deal with them is they do well in the portal as well. He's obviously, they know their stuff when it comes to quarterback play and running an offense. The struggle would definitely be defensively. You put him at Alabama where he's got the resources that he has and he gets the right defensive coach, and he may have the right coach. They just don't have the guys in the trenches at Washington. That won't be a problem at Alabama. It's he was really good at and he was at Florida State for 2 years, I think it was. Let's see. Let me see. Yeah, he was real good at Fresno State. I had him up a minute ago, but I think I may have lost it off of here. Look him up again. Oh. Where's that in there? Okay. Yeah, he was only at Fresno State for 2 years, went 12-6, second in the conference, won the New Mexico Bowl, and then he's 25-3 in 2 seasons, and second season plays for the national championship in Power 5. I mean, come on, guys, he's good. I think a lot of it probably has to do, Kerwin, with the fact that, look, I've told you this before. I've said it before on this channel. Working in the margins and doing the things that they've done, and you know, obviously when you start winning, it kind of the machine turns on and just keeps rolling, right? But the ability to say, you know, when you stop being able to stash them, I think that this is the reason nobody will ever pass him probably in national titles now, because it just got harder to win one. But also because of the fact that players are not going to stick around and let you stash them behind. Somebody asked earlier before about the SEC not being able to transfer within the SEC. That rule is no longer a rule. They cannot lawfully do that, right? Again, these laws and rules and stuff like that the conferences and everybody have come up with, it is what it is. If you want an X's and O's guy, he can coach them up. They're going to have to get some TV money, man. Look, if you really want to slow this stuff down and not have these guys being mercenaries and going year to year, team to team, which I can understand that. Look, I think it's a bad look when you get a quarterback that plays at 4 schools in 4 years, or doesn't play at 4 schools in 4 years, but just, you know, or loses his job and he's off to the next one. I don't love it. But if you're going to want to be able to hold him down, you're going to have to sign him to a contract and say, we're going to pay you to stay here for X amount of years, just like it would be any other professional contract. Top 2 O-line guys. Are we talking about like Hurd and those guys? I think that they've already committed elsewhere, unless, are you talking about somebody else? Or it was Hurd, and then you had the guy from Alabama. He committed to Florida State yesterday, which is why I thought Norvell was a weird thought. Somebody was telling me that he was the guy, and then I was like, well, then why did their best interior offensive lineman just commit to Florida State earlier? It didn't make a lot of sense. So Bama will eat him too. It could. Look, here's the thing. It could eat you up if you're not prepared to take it over. It could be too much for you. Some guys it is. The lights could be too bright for you, and I think that the lights were too bright for. I don't necessarily know that it was Kalen DeBoer. I think they were too too bright for the team in the national title game. Because, I mean, well, I think if Michigan doesn't all of a sudden have a brain fart and start throwing the ball when they're averaging 19 yards a carry, they blow them out. But yeah, these guys are good to go. Guys, we appreciate everybody coming in here. Make sure if you hadn't hit that like button, I hadn't checked it out yet, but we've had upwards of 100 to 200 people at some points during this program. It was kind of impromptu. We're going to continue trying to update you as much as we possibly can. Make sure you get over there. Check out the Big 12 Mafia show. He's got kind of like our show, those guys have excellent content creators on day after day, show after show. Make sure you get over there to the Big 12 Mafia. Check it out. Him and the Wild Ute, Immaculate, Moen. The Moen show is a great show as well. Yeah, that dude's a trip. They all have a lot of information, man, and you're going to get it from different angles. So, like I said, similar to this show, I think that we have the best. This show here, I believe that we have the best guests when it comes to content creators of any show. We bring them on all the time. We got Jay and Ty and Coop and Chris and Coach I and Shoddy and hey, JJ Kitchen, and the list goes on and on and on and on. And when you bring in guys like this, it really helps a lot, man. It helps a lot. I enjoy getting their perspective on stuff, being able to pass on what we know to you guys and our opinions to you guys, and we love hearing your opinions too. The best way to help us out is to make sure you hit that like button. You can always use the super chat function if you'd like to become a member of our membership. The membership on our channel is really cool because you get into the Discord where you're going to get a lot more interaction with me, and Coop and Jay are also in there as well. Sometimes get a lot more interaction with us coming through that. That's just as low as $2.99 a month. There's other perks that come with it as well. There's going to continue to be more of those perks as well. You also could go through some of our affiliate partnerships and get discounts off merchandise, all that kind of stuff. Our Devil Dogs coffee deal is a big deal to me because of the fact that a portion of every sale, first of all, it's amazing coffee, but a portion of every sale goes to the Wounded Warrior program. As a military veteran myself, that's an important thing for me. Make sure you get over and check it out. We're talking coffee from all over the world. It's delivered fresh to your door. They get your order. It's roasted, grinded, shipped the same day, coming back to you to make sure you get the freshest stuff. Check out that new Ethiopian blend, or it's not a new blend, it's new to me. The Ethiopian blend was amazing. If you use promo code Boomer on your first purchase, you'll get 10% off. HOFmedia.us/coffee. That's Devil Dogs Brew and Beans. Veteran owned, serving veterans. Make sure you check it out. Guys, thanks so much for coming in. As I said, the free way to support the program, like and subscribe. That's the best way. Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate all you guys coming in. Like I always tell everybody, love you guys and enjoy being able to bring you content week after week. And we'll see you on the next one.